the dimensional approach is the main alternative to the categorical approach. So essentially, instead of seeing symptoms as a feature of a psychiatric illness, so, let's say depression, sadness, fatigue, hopelessness, feelings of suicide. Instead of thinking of those clusters as signs of depression, then the dimensional approach instead perceives symptoms on a continuum. So it will have a more holistic approach to different symptoms, which has a slight different implication for our question about character flaws. So in that case, we have to ask, can all psychiatric illnesses be considered as dimensional? Essentially, they look at the symptoms before they look at the psychiatric illness. So, as you can see here, low mood swings, impulsivity, social awkwardness, hallucinations. Those things are either, we argue, symptoms of a psychiatric illness, or they are character flaws or personality, individual differences. So it's a different way of conceptualizing psychiatric illnesses. And here is an example of how it works. So this example is with psychosis. So instead of seeing psychosis or schizophrenia, where people experience hallucinations, it's very distressing, instead of diagnosing individual cases on an arbitrary cutoff, so either you have schizophrenia or you don't have schizophrenia, it sees it in a more broad sense. So as you can see on the graph right here, this is the population that actually have a psychotic disorder. There's a larger section of the population that have psychotic symptoms but don't quite fit the cutoff to have a psychotic disorder. And then here there's an even bigger chunk of the population, 8% or 28% in the US, where people have psychotic experiences. So that might be things like a small scale hallucination at one point in their life, but that is not enough to mean that they have a psychotic disorder, i.e. a psychiatric illness. So it varies along a continuum. It doesn't categorize things as psychiatric illnesses or character flaws, but instead social norms and experiences that normal individuals all experience. However, there are criticisms to this approach as well. Mainly, it's about treatment. So if we just look at things as different symptoms that we all experience on an everyday basis, then how do we go about diagnosing anyone? And then how do we go about treating people? The good thing about the categorical approach that the DSM uses is it's an easier way to diagnose, and diagnosis means treatment. Treatments mean interventions, and that means access to resources, so it's much easier for healthcare systems to deal with simple diagnoses rather than individual symptoms. Diagnoses can provide relief to families or individuals who may else feel stigmatized, confused, slightly abnormal. And diagnoses also help raise awareness and reduce stigma associated with the conditions. So it's slightly up to you and up to the individual to decide which method is better. And what does this mean for the question, crucially? The dimensional approach challenges the notion of a behaviour being a character flaw or a psychiatric illness, but instead an experience that anyone may have at some point in their life. So we've now got a new aspect to our question, which we can use to argue in our favour.